we call the company holding statement. I mean, the first 60 minutes in a crisis are always key. A company cannot remain silent, or else an information vacuum results. And if an information vacuum results, then other voices not favorable to the company will fill that vacuum.
Right.
So it's essential that somebody come out, usually an operational spokesperson, like the head of corporate communications or the business area affected. This person comes out and says, we're investigating the situation. These are the facts as we know them. We'll keep you updated as we can. Then later, as the dimensions are known, and if it does affect a whole bunch of people, and it could get worse, the CEO then would come out and accept further responsibility with the benefit of more information.
But it must be very tricky. I'm thinking, for example, if I was a middle manager in a corporation, even the head of a large corporation, and I was being grilled by the press, there must be answers that I would be hesitating to know whether I was giving the correct response or whether I was basically digging a real deep hole for myself.
Absolutely.
How could someone like, how does your company, for example, help very inexperienced communicators in dealing publicly? I mean, someone like myself, for example, I stand up and speak in front of 70 people, often at dinners, happy in this kind of environment. But if I was suddenly in front of a core of press being grilled about a crisis, that would be very different.
Well, in many cases, we will hold a simulated news conference or do media training for the executive concerned, where we prepare the worst case scenario questions. Someone like me would play a mock journalist, and we would put the question to the executive so that this person could actually think, could actually rehearse, and could see his or her performance played back on television, so that you can identify with your own eyes some of the mistakes that you've made. And then when you do go out there to face the feeding frenzy of the media, at a very high drama moment, you can get your message across accurately and in a reassuring manner.
From all your years of experience, are there a few tips that you could give people watching our interview as to how they might handle a crisis without having had any coaching beforehand? Well,
follow this concern, action, preparedness formula, number one. Make sure that a company thinks ahead so that if you do have a crisis, these are the 5 people who are going to be on our crisis management team. People also have to remember, Paul, there are 2 layers to crisis. There's actually managing the problem, the factory fire. There's the people who are, putting out the fire, trying to make sure there's no emission of dangerous gases or whatever, if it's a chemical plant. But actually, the part that we deal with is the communication of the crisis. So there's communications management and reality management. So reality management is fixing the actual problem. But in today's media-driven marketplace, it's the reality of the crisis that can either boost the company's brand or harm it for years to come. So that's what we focus on doing. I would say the other thing to counsel people is don't take initial media reports and accept that as truth. Before you talk to the media, understand from your own people what are the exact facts of the matter. Double confirm everything. Because the media is often in such a rush to be first. It's so competitive these days. Sometimes accuracy is a victim of that rush to come out with the scoop or the exclusive or the breaking story ahead of the other media outlets.
I was very impressed a few weeks ago. A British luxury brand that's been going through some financial difficulty. It was actually Asprey and Garrard. That was an old brand that was revived. It was there was huge amounts of money invested in building a new shop in Bond Street in London, and then just basically expanding the brand. And then a lot of negative press recently about the financial state of the business and the viability of the business. And I was impressed, having bought a couple of gifts there about a year ago, to receive a letter from the company saying, you've read in the press, there's all this negativity, there's some stories here that we don't believe are quite accurate. This is where we're heading in the future. Our financial security, as a financial future, is sound. These are our new investors. I was impressed with that. Is that something that Edelman would recommend in that situation, where there's rumours going around or maybe inaccurate information?
And that is massive in Japan. In Japan, according to our research, more than in the other 15 countries that we surveyed, Japanese will trust a company more based on its financial strength and the transparent communication of its financial prospects. So the quality of a product, as we know, is a really important thing in this country. You mentioned a luxury brand, a premium offer, but a sense that the company has a financial leg to stand on. We had so many years here of select financial fortunes, tough times. So when a company is seen to be financially successful, that is something to communicate, because it builds a certain degree of trust that this company will do what is right, because they won't cut any corners because they're in financial trouble. So if you are doing well financially, make sure everyone knows that. And if you're not doing well financially and there's rumors, and every time, like in Japan, there's 10,000 new blogs a day.
Oh, really?
That's right. This is the place where blogging can often be a breeding ground for rumors. You come out and make sure that the facts are communicated. Northwest Airlines, for example, there was a lot of talk about their going out of business, and even though they've been in bankruptcy protection, they have come out every step of the way and reassured people, here's the balance sheet, here's how much cash we have, here's our plan moving forward to get ourselves out of this. So that's one good example of how a company's managed it well.
This relatively new phenomenon of blogs, where you're empowering basically the public and the consumer to report on, I guess, the companies that they're doing business with, quite dangerous, isn't it? I mean, the influence that these blogs can have on people's opinion, and whether these blogs are always entirely accurate or not. Right. That must be an issue you're talking about with your clients.
Very much so. According to our research, about 50% of the people think that blogs might be credible, 50% think the information from blogs might not be credible. But in other words, if information as conveyed through a blog gets out there and it's sensational, people may not believe it automatically. It's not like an accepted currency or something, but they'll think, maybe there's something to that. And because of the fact that through a blog, I mean, everyone basically owns their own printing press these days.
Yes, yeah.
It means that a company really doesn't have as a credible alternative anymore the option of covering up information. It's always going to get it in the end. It also argues in favor, Paul, of making sure a company communicates well with its own employees and